Stop reviewing games politically. Just halt, please. Cease and also desist. You expect it from Kotaku and other niche publications that have nothing to offer beyond outrage clicks, so they'll write a for instance headline like, "Why God of War Ragnarok suffers from white male privilege," and you roll your eyes and go about your day because you only saw it in the periphery of someone else talking about it, because you don't actually follow rage bait sites, even though you probably should for content like this, but you value your mental health more and don't want to start every day by scrolling Twitter and putting yourself in a bad mood. But every now and then, that kind of inane lens through which certain people decide to view literally everything is spotted in a more unfamiliar environment. I'm probably one more strike away from detaching myself from Gameinformer and finding a different publication to shack up with. I know people complain about every single one of them, and a perfect one doesn't exist, but as someone who hates change and has been mainlining this review site since I subscribed to their physical magazines when I was like 12, this is a big deal to me. It's been miss after miss with Gameinformer lately. The company's downsizing, I think. A lot of their staff no longer works there, and they're owned by GameStop, which hasn't exactly been killing it for the past decade, so you can imagine this isn't much of a surprise. And aside the tumultuous restructuring of things, their reviews have been shitting the bed. Like, quite a bit of them in a row have been controversial. I'm not new to the idea of Gameinformer having a shit take on a game. I grew up with them giving terrible scores to the OG Dragon Ball Z Budokai franchise, which the first game deserved, but Budokai 2 and 3 were night and day better and somehow got worse scores than the original. Straight up baffling. Like, you didn't play the fucking games. It's a cliche criticism, but you actually have to have never seen nor touched the video games to come to that conclusion. They also gave a bad review to Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, and that's when you just lose your gamer card, in my estimation. Drop it off at the nearest landfill because that shit is so tainted I wouldn't want anyone else to have it. But yeah, multiple current reviews. It started with Saints Row. They gave that dumpster an 8.5 and called it captivating chaos, like it wasn't the biggest flop of 2022, the biggest integrity retcon a franchise has ever undergone. It would be like if they gave Balan Wonderworld a 9 and said it had an inspired button layout. Saints Row is the Teen Titans Go of video games, except worse, because at least Go is competently produced and just isn't my taste. Like, I don't really care for Red Dead Redemption 2, but that game is a marvel of production quality. Saints Row is just shit. Wall to wall. Strike 2 was on that very review. They disabled comments, and they're still disabled to this day. Just a craven pussy move in general, and I hate that word, but coward doesn't hit hard enough for what it takes to just lock down a comment section indefinitely and pretend you're not getting reamed for a good reason. Next was more recent. Bayonetta 3. I haven't played Bayonetta 3, so I have nothing to say about the accuracy of the review as far as quality is concerned, but they clickbaited it so goddamn hard that it blew me away. Their tweet about the Bayonetta 3 review goes like this. Bayonetta 3 is an absolute blast. It's bombastic, over the top, and extravagant for the sake of extravagance, leaving ruins, literally, in its wake. Our review. And then they put the link. You click the link, you go to the article, and you see that they gave it an 8.25. What? You could copy-paste that exact initial description over the top of a 10 out of 10 God of War Ragnarok review, and people will be like, hell yeah, like it would make sense. But you're out here verbally sucking a game's dick just to give it a B-? That's like if you took an Uber and wrote, absolutely amazing driver, terrific personality, had me laughing the whole way to my destination, raised the bar for Uber drivers everywhere, 4 stars. Aw, you know it goes up to 5, right? I'm not saying Bayonetta 3 deserves a 10 out of 10, but your description sure seemed to think so. But the most recent thing that really sent me over the edge was their review of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Even calling it their review is disingenuous because the person who wrote it literally has no other credits on the site. Like, if you click his name in the review, it brings up his page, and all that shows up is the Modern Warfare 2 thing. Other Gameinformer reviewers have bios, they have everything they've ever written for the site show up there. This dude, no bio, no human profile picture, it's a cat with a rifle, no other written things, just this Call of Duty review. New hire? Dummy account for someone established to hide behind? Like, what the fuck is this? But I'm getting ahead of myself because we have to talk about why this is probably the worst review they've ever done, which brings me back to the first thing I said in this video. Stop reviewing games politically. Nobody who doesn't spray themselves with a perfume crafted from the juice of their own farts wants to read your asinine projections. To quote the opposite of Life is Strange 2, not everything is political, Sean. This dude, who has apparently been public about his moral objections to Call of Duty in the past, was for some reason chosen to review a Call of Duty game. First of all, don't review games you have an already established precedent for hating. Donkey creates a Twitter firestorm every time he reviews a JRPG because he doesn't fucking like JRPGs, and everyone scratches their heads as to why it was necessary. I don't like sports games, and I will never like sports games. Therefore, I am not out here buying every single Madden and FIFA title and regurgitating the same genre-oriented criticisms over and over again like stale puke. Your word vomit is expired, bro. Just flush it already. The review begins with this sentence. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is a very unpleasant game, and it only gets worse from there. This guy gave it a 6.5 out of 10, and from the words in the review, it seemingly had nothing to do with gameplay, which is all anybody should be caring about in a Call of Duty game. I actually picked this one up after skipping the last few, and I do find the multiplayer to be enjoyable, better than what we've gotten in the recent past for sure. And you know what? The reviewer echoes this, saying the multiplayer is the best it's been in years. But his political objections to the game, which can be boiled down to Call of Duty's attempts to not be overtly political in the campaign, and his apparent disapproval of war in general, which, hey buddy, you might be playing the wrong game then, but he says those political objections somehow bleed into the multiplayer, because he'll play a multiplayer map that was in the campaign, and it will remind him of parts of the campaign, and then he's like, ew, and he doesn't want to play anymore. What a fucking baby. Why are you reviewing a Call of Duty game? I'm still baffled. I'm not a COD fanboy by any means, at least not since the Black Ops 3 days, but watching someone give a 6.5 to a game that is getting largely positive reviews not only from the usual player base, but that's also bringing back skeptics like me because of their perpetual hatred of the franchise that should have excluded them from the review selection pool in the first place is yucky. It doesn't feel good to see that happening. That's a review that's gonna affect the Metacritic score. I am 100% confident in my stance that review outlets whose scores make a difference to a game's overall critical reception should not select people outside the game's target audience to review it. Call of Duty is not made for people who get a pit in their stomach when a soldier in a uniform shows up on the screen. It's not made for people who see a gun and start hyperventilating. It's for people who like arcadey-style snappy gunplay, queuing multiplayer with their friends for hours, and getting spawn camped because skill-based matchmaking overestimated their abilities. Even if the campaign had been objectively trash for a myriad of reasons, better than average multiplayer shouldn't drop the score below an 8 out of 10. Everyone knows Call of Duty lives and dies by multiplayer. If the multiplayer lives, the game lives. And since me and the reviewer don't even disagree on the quality of multiplayer, the review just tells on itself for being completely up its own ass politically and philosophically. To its credit, as I'm typing this, it's been up for almost a week and hasn't disabled comments. Probably because the burner account that wrote it hasn't even logged back in. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Sunburned Albino. Watch every video I've ever made and only review them if you already hate me, and I'll see you guys next time.